So my name is Anne Helsdingen. I work at the Center for Learning Sciences and Technologies at the Open University in the Netherlands. And we've conducted, I'm presenting today the results of a project that we're still continuing, so I'm presenting the results so far. OER and the Open University. The Open University in the Netherlands is already involved in several initiatives, institutional initiatives, Wikiwijs, and I think that, is that my name now? Yeah. Oh. And I think that some of the initiatives that I've listed here, Wikiwijs, Opener, and Stuur, have been presented or will be presented during these days. Our current organization is an online distance educational organization. We provide online bachelor and master courses. We have funding from government. We have a lump sum funding, and we also get funding for per student, and our students pay tuition. Still, with all these initiatives and with our day-to-day business, the Open University is investigating how it might manage open educational resources, what it means for the organization, and in what ways the organization might have to change to embrace this whole new development. Because I think that it's not really a choice if or whether you're going to move towards open educational resources. It's rather a choice how you're going to embrace these resources. And for distance learning organization, whether we're going to heaven or whether we're going to hell, we're not sure yet, but we're trying to find out. So the questions that we had at the start of this project was, let's have a look at what other institutions are doing. What's their model? What's their sustainability? Why do they offer open educational resources? How do they do that? And how successful are they? These were the questions that we started out with. So how did we go about and get the answers that we wanted to get? So we wanted to know what are others doing, and can we learn from other initiatives? So to go about it in a structured way, we decided to analyze business models of the other initiatives that are out there. There's, of course, hundreds of them, but we made a selection. So the business models is kind of like a story that tells you in a structured way what businesses or what organizations do and for whom they do it. And both in describing other organizations as well as in prescribing the way you want to do business, business models help you to structure your activities and to make your decisions. So, and how did we collect the data on these business models? Well, we, of course, did some internet search and looked at other initiatives and their websites and everything, but we also conducted semi-structured interviews with experts, with representatives of the organizations that offer open educational resources, both from educational institutes, but also from publishers and funding bodies in the field of open educational resources. Well, we just asked them how they do it. Another word for semi-structured interviews. Apart from getting the information on the business models that they had, we were also able to ask them why they offered open educational resources and how successful they were, because that were the other questions that we had. The structured approach in our collecting data was the business model that you see here. It's the canvas model from Osterwalder and Pigneur. It's a way to describe what an organization is doing and for whom it's doing what and how they're doing it. But it's also, as Osterwalder and Pigneur say, a way to structure your organization and maybe be successful. So it's both descriptive and prescriptive in a way. You see here the value proposition, the product or the service that you want to offer to your customers. the customer segment. So, you don't want to serve everyone. You want to serve maybe a special group. You see revenue stream, distribution channels. So how do you get your products or services towards your customers, but also what kind of relationships do you want to have with your customers? What key activities do you need to undertake to provide your service or your product? With whom are you doing that? The key partners. What are the cost drivers in your organization? And what are the key resources that you need to develop your product or your service, your value proposition? So this was the model that we took, and we wanted to analyze each initiative according to this model. We conducted the semi-structured we planned the semi-structured interviews, and as you can see, we've chosen a lot of institutes, and we're still in the process of conducting interviews and collecting data on many initiatives that are out there. But the business model does not specify whether you're successful or not. So apart from asking the people in the interviews, we also thought it was a good idea to conduct a literature review, and as a scientist, I rather do a systematic literature review, and I use peer-reviewed journals. So this is something that I don't want to present today, the results, because they're rather, they're not very interesting, but I wanted to present it just for a second, because I think it's an inspiration for all of us here to publish more in peer-reviewed journals and to make sure that we get more outside of our own little family of OER scientists, to get more work out in the open in the scientific world, because the result was 11, and I had my keywords very broadly. So the Osterwalder and Pigneur business model. Here you see again the key partnerships, core activities, value proposition, the whole model as it is. And we conducted the interviews and asked the people questions to get information on all these aspects of an organization and its activities. So let's paint. First of all, the value proposition. In doing the interviews, I think if you look at the paper that we've written about it, you see the raw data in there. So of all the interviews that we have in the paper, we have links to the interviews. They're going to be available online, so you can actually see the interviews for yourself. And also all the information from the interviews, we put them together in a very large document. So you can see for each of the initiatives that we've studied, you can see what their value proposition is and what customer relationships they have. But as far as we are right now, having done, I think, about 15 or somewhere between 15 or 20 interviews, I just want to make a resume of the things that we found out. And overall, I think that if you look at the open educational resources initiatives, you see three types of value proposition. You see resources that are building blocks for teachers or anyone else to use to build your own courses with. You see introductory or teaser courses being offered, and complete courses online. But no things like accreditation, not once whatsoever. I haven't found any accreditation products. So whom are they doing it for? They're doing it for self-learners, people all around the world. They're doing it for their own regular students, especially for universities. That's a service that they provide. And they do it for educational professionals. These are the three large groups that are identified by the people that we interviewed. How do they get their product across? Well, websites and to a lesser extent the use of Web 2.0 tools, which was to be expected. The relationships that they hold with their customers, mostly content push. Most organizations just put their content out there for people to use, but they don't have a really interactive relationship with their clients. But a second group of initiatives, and I get to the big picture later on, I just want to get through these, are initiatives where there is an interactive relationship where the users are contributors at the same time. And when you see what most organizations are doing is they're digitizing materials. If they already have digitized materials, they need to make it suitable for self-study. And this is, I'm sorry, this is because of my Apple a PC, but it says creating a community, an active contributing community. That's also a core activity of many of the initiatives that we've interviewed. Key resources, well, I'll just skip to this because I want to actually get to the bigger picture, because these are all just parts that you can actually check in the paper, and you can see all of the building blocks for each organization there. So what we found is actually two different types of business models. The first one is mostly offered by regular universities and distance learning institutes. They offer introductory courses and complete courses mainly for their regular students as an extra service, and to a lesser extent to self-learners. They're mostly involved in content push, so they put the information out there and they let it there, and they're hardly having any interaction with their students. They use a website. Their revenue stream, so how do they make money? Well, mostly by funding from government or foundations. And if you look at what they integrate in their cost structure, is it man hours for experts, but experts here are the experts in digitizing materials, or the law experts, or the didactical experts. They're not, in their cost structure, they're not taking into account the man hours for production of educational material, because they feel that that is a sunk cost, because they already have these teachers in place and these teachers already make the materials. Of course, I would say that's a sunk cost fallacy that they're making out there, but if you want to calculate cost that way, I think you're pretending to be richer than you actually are. So this is one type of business model that we see. And this business model, I mean, I don't pretend that everyone fits in this model or in the other model, but this is, if you look at the bigger picture, this is one of the major business models that we see. And I have to say that these organizations, mainly universities, regular brick-and-mortar universities, but also distance learning universities, they have their OER, and that's why I put it in here, as just one of their value propositions. They do not have their business model completely around OER, but OER is just one of the things amongst a whole lot of other things that they're doing. And this is probably also why they have organized it in the way that they do, with the content push and only calculating extra man-hour cost. The second business model, and if you paid attention, now the colors are different, but the second type of business model is actually the business model that you see for community initiatives like Wiki, Educator Wikiwijs, and those types of websites. Their value proposition is that they offer building blocks for educational professionals to make their own courses. They are their relationship with their customers or their contributors is very interactive, and actually they have no the contributors or their key resources are outside their span of control because they rely on volunteers to contribute. They still, their revenue is still coming from funding, mostly government or foundation funding, but they try to get some third-party funding through very creative schemes, but they're not really up until now, I haven't really seen very successful initiatives to get really good funding for it. And their core activity is creating an active community. That's the most important thing that they need to do. And then that community needs to contribute to the website and to the repository, as you will say. And their value proposition, or their business model, is completely around OER. This is not just one of the things that they do. No, they are living and breathing OER. If you look at cost structure, again, here, the only thing that they calculate is variable cost involved in maintaining and storage of the website. But the cost for developing materials, because all these volunteers are outside their span of control, is not calculated in calculating the cost of OER. So, looking at these two types of business models and all these initiatives, are they successful? Well, yes and no. The goals that are mostly mentioned that they need to achieve, yes, is they want to enhance reputation. This is said, for all the initiatives. Enhance the reputation of the educational institute. They want to improve education and learning. They want to provide better service to their regular students. This is only for the regular universities. And they want to service lifelong learning. So, yes, they're successful because most of the institutions are able to enhance their reputation through OER, and they provide better service to their own students. But no, I don't think they're very successful in improving education and learning, and I'm not sure if they're reaching lifelong learners. And let me explain to you quickly why I think that is the case, or why we think this is the case. Now, you're thinking the same thing. One thing is, why are they not improving education and learning? Well, one is the one-way interaction with users, the content push approach. In that way, they're not using the full potential of the collective intellect that you actually want to have, when you're developing in an open, creative world. And what I've seen also is the updating and revision cycles tend to be very long. You can find materials dating back from 1996, as it, a course as it was given in February 1996. Another aspect is, if you look at their business models, is the one-way interaction does not really generate a rich learning environment because there's no way for students to interact with teachers, or not enough. The value proposition is content-oriented, so it's just PowerPoints and PDF files, and it's not a meaningful learning experience. And the feedback is often absent or low in quality. They're not reaching lifelong learners because they don't know who their lifelong learners are. So they cannot adapt their content or their proposition to the lifelong learners. Most of them are just focusing on the students that they knew before and not on the special needs of lifelong learners. They provide a warehouse approach. So you can choose, your own learning materials as a learner, but many people are not capable of doing that. I mean, going into a warehouse and just choosing your own things is not the same thing as getting bespoke training adapted to your needs. And I think, but this is a separate point, the cost-driven approach toward learning materials denies the fact that learning is an investment. So it might be that the whole thing of investing in yourself is now lost in this free and open world. And the question is whether that then motivates lifelong learners to actually invest time and effort. But I don't want to pretend that we know. So yes, no, they're successful, they're not successful, but we don't really know because there are not many impact or effect studies published. The measurements that organizations do are limited, and we cannot relate those measurements to business models choices because we do not have information on field initiatives, for example. So if you only know what works, but you don't know what doesn't work, then you cannot distinguish between the two. And are we successful in our project? Well, yes and no. Yes, we do know. Well, yes, let me get back to the questions that we had. Why do the other institutions provide the OER? How are they doing that and how successful are they? Well, we know what other institutes are doing, or we're getting to know what other institutes are doing. We know why they're doing this, but we still don't know which business model guarantees success. So we need to get into that. But I think that the great success is we don't know yet. As a researcher, I start a project, and as a researcher, I end the project with more questions that I started out with. So I think in that way, we are having a success. So this was my presentation.
Yes, thank you, Anna. There's time for some questions. So you already have generated more questions, and I'm sure there will be more questions here around the audience. So please go ahead.
So how would you adapt for the lifelong learner? In other words, like if they're not addressing or reaching the lifelong learner, what should they do to query the lifelong learner?
Yes, that's one of the things. I mean, first of all, as I said here, we need to identify the customers that we have. This is from a business approach. If we want funding from government, then of course the government is our customer. But if you look at the learning value that you want to improve for the lifelong learner, I think you need to know the lifelong learner. And I was at a speech just the other week, and there was a school director, and he said, you know, within the Ministry of Education, policy is being made by academics who have an IQ of, on average, of 120. And they're actually developing educational policies for learners that have an IQ of 100. But in the schools that I'm working with, this school director said, my average IQ of my students is 85, and I have students with IQs of 70. So the policy that is being made, it does not apply to my school and my learners. And I think the same is true within the OER world. We're developing and putting stuff out there for people that are actually interested, because we are interested. But many people don't have the time or the interest, but they do have a need because, you know, they need to change jobs. Or so I think that we need to find out what motivates them more than just putting out stuff there. But I'm not sure how we just other than by asking. That's what we are going to do in the next in the next step of this project. You need to just get to know the lifelong learners and their needs. And I don't think that we know who they are right now.
Well, that's a long reply. It's difficult.
Sorry.
One other question, then we should shift to the next presenter. Maybe some questions anymore?
In your search for content that was out there, were you finding more open educational content than there were open ed courses? And by courses I mean objectives, content, self-assessment type of thing versus just content that was put out there?
No, you definitely have initiatives that put out assessments, and actually there's also a few that, and you can see that in the paper as well, there are also a few that actually provide interaction with the teacher, and he gives you feedback on what you've done for free. This is very rare, but so what I said was, on average, it's content push. On average, they're building blocks or courses, just the content of the courses, but there are very nice other initiatives as well, but no accreditation anywhere.
Okay, let's thank Anne again.